Well, unfortunately, most people think this way. And this is reflected in the world of cinematography. Remember some of these recent films where they have these vigilantes, these superheroes that are saving people and families from injustices, right? Many people empathize with these films, and they're blockbusters because people love them, because they satisfy a need the people have of seeing justice exacted in unjust situations. But if we are concerned only with our private situation and neglect the bigger picture and our obligation to souls of the past, present, and future, which is the bigger picture, then we will not receive the grace, and we will not be elevated in God's love to a high point of holiness that only great sacrifice can obtain.
Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to Armor of God again, and thank you so much as well for taking the time to be here with us. So hopefully it's going to be a time well spent learning a lot of useful things from the compilation of clips here. Just before we start, I'd like to share this tweet I came across while putting this video together, where a statue of Our Lady was found intact after surviving a wildfire in a burned-down house. Anyway, let's get to the first clip of this compilation. It's going to be Father Joseph Iannuzzi, and here he explains a little bit more in detail why God allows the demons to torture or harass the saints like Saint Gemma or Pio. Listen to this.
Now, many saints, no, I shouldn't say many, some saints have been attacked by the devil, but this is not a possession due to this fault of the saint, but it is a possession of some of the faculties of the saint by virtue of God's providence. For example, Saint Gemma Galgani, she would look at her food and see worms moving about. God allowed Satan to possess the faculty of her eye sometimes. Or Saint Padre Pio. There was no possession of any faculty of his body, but he would allow the devil to physically beat Padre Pio and torment him with visions, torment him in his dreams, and lie to him. There were cases of Blessed Anya da Foligno, or the Curate of Ars, or Luisa Picaretta, or other saints, where some parts of their faculties were inflicted by the devil. And God allowed this. And you say, why? Well, number one, for their purification. Two, for their growth in virtue. And three, so that through their sufferings, which they freely offered up for God, willingly offered up for the love of God, saved souls from hell. So oftentimes when God allows a saint to be tormented in an unusual way, what comes to mind is also another mystic. She's not yet canonized, but I think she eventually will be, Josefa Menendez. God would allow Satan to drag her down to hell and stick her in a niche in hell where other souls would have gone had her sufferings not saved them from that niche in hell. So God would allow Satan to take out his anger upon the very instrument that snatched souls from hell. But God gave Josefa Menendez the knowledge of why this was happening. He didn't just leave her as a sport in the hands of the devil to do as he wished. He enlightened her first. He always does this. Now, some of you listening may say, this is insane. Why would God allow those most dear to him, his choicest souls, to be the butt or the sport of Satan's hatred? And the answer to that question is no less simple than it is mysterious. It's simple in this sense. The psalmist says, God chastises those whom he loves, right? And Peter in his letter says the same thing, quoting Psalms. And it's mysterious in the sense that God can bring a soul to such a state, such a height of holiness. Most of us may not be able to understand this, that the soul will understand these divine designs, that when God calls it to experience some of the interior sense of the damned in hell, that will bring them to experience the state of the loss of the damned, so that in taking upon themselves that sense of the damned, they help other souls avoid eternal damnation. They willingly embrace it. Now, most of us cannot understand this philosophy, that in taking upon ourselves the condition of someone who's completely sick, we help other people be healed. That doesn't seem to make sense to many of us, but it makes perfect sense to these saints who understand the secrets of God, the mysteries of God. And it makes perfect sense biblically. Christ took upon himself the state of a slave to free us from slavery. Christ took upon himself the state of sinfulness without committing any sin to free us from sin. And this is the logic behind God allowing souls to take upon themselves the state of the damned, or the torments of the damned, in order to free souls from damnation and the torments of damnation, without the souls themselves being damned, of course, who take upon themselves the suffering. But this is the mystery, this is the logic.
There's one clip after the next one, where Father Iannuzzi talked about hell. But before I share that clip though, the following clip I think is a very good as well as important reminder for us all. And I shared a bit of it in the beginning of this video.
Well, the grace of the baptism of victimhood is a great and rare grace, a singular grace that few souls are given because, number one, few souls are willing to accept this grace. That is, few souls are willing to give 100% of their time, talents, and lives for the sake of souls. Think of it. How many people in the world, if there was, let's say, a survey that went out now, would answer the question in that survey asking, what comes first in your life of priorities? What matters to you most in life? Would answer that question in the survey stating, my family, my children, my loved ones. And hardly any would answer, mankind, all souls, the salvation of souls. And this yet is the kind of answer necessary for one to receive the grace of victimhood. One has to be willing to spend their life for the good, yes, of their loved ones, yes, of their children, yes, of their family, but not without a concern for all mankind as well. The grace of victimhood means our love must not be limited to the immediate clan. It must, yes, embrace the immediate family, but go beyond it and embrace all souls. Think of it. Do you think that Jesus and Mary loved each other any less than they love us? Imagine if they did. Suppose they said, okay, we love each other. This is our immediate family. Jesus, Mary, Joseph. And that's it. That's our foremost concern. The world, they can think for themselves. Yes, we hope them to be saved, but we really want just our family to be saved. Imagine what would happen to us. Well, unfortunately, most people think this way. And this is reflected in the world of cinematography. Remember some of these recent films where they have these vigilantes, these superheroes that are saving people and families from injustices, right? Many people empathize with these films, and they're blockbusters because people love them, because they satisfy a need that people have of seeing justice exacted in unjust situations. But if we are concerned only with our private situation and neglect the bigger picture and our obligation to souls of the past, present, and future, which is the bigger picture, then we will not receive the grace and we will not be elevated in God's love to a high point of holiness that only great sacrifice can obtain.
The following clip will be more about hell, and Father Iannuzzi includes examples of people who saw clergies, bishops being in hell. Of course, this isn't for sensationalism or anything of the sort. It's more for a reminder as well as warning to the rest of us that we should strive to offer up our intentions to save souls from hell. Listen to this.
One of the teachings that has fallen out of our modern society is the teaching of vicarious love, vicarious sacrifice. At Fatima, the Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to 3 shepherd children and opened up the earth, thereby revealing to them the souls of the damned. And they saw them, and initially they were taken aback with fright. They were young. But Our Lady gave them the grace of God, to not only endure this experience, but understand why they had to experience it. And that was because through their prayers for these souls, that is, souls going to hell, they can help change their pathway so that they no longer go to hell, and that souls go to heaven. Now, seeing these souls in hell was a stark warning to not only these 3 shepherd children, but to the world, for this message was conveyed to the world through these children by Our Lady, from Our Lady through these children to us, so that we know hell is not only real, but that there are people in hell. Certainly nobody wants anyone to go to hell. Nobody wants anyone to go to hell for eternity. But unfortunately, there are people in hell, and we know that from not only private revelation that are approved and sanctioned by the Church, such as those of Saint Faustina, who saw in hell people she actually knew while on earth, and went so far as to say that what shocked her the most was that the people in hell, most of the people in hell, did not believe on earth that hell existed. And that shocked her very much. But nonetheless, she did see people there, and so did Hildegard. She even saw certain prelates in hell, even bishops. She saw this, Hildegard, as well as Teresa of Avila and other mystics, saints in the Church. And the grace of the baptism of victimhood is nothing other than a joyous invitation of our Lord. He never wants us to suffer without joy, never wants us to offer sacrifice without joy, never wants us to experience any pain without joy. To take upon ourselves, by offering our cross with that of Christ, consequences of the sins of others so that they don't go to hell. In other words, let's suppose I'm experiencing a bad day today. Things just seem to be going wrong, a mishap of errors. And what do? Well, I can unite my intention of offering up these inconveniences, these difficulties, these setbacks, with the intention of God that all souls be saved. And God will apply this intention of mine to save souls from hell. Now, naturally, we cannot pray for the souls who are in hell, because once you are in hell, as the Council of Trent teaches, you are there for eternity, and it never ends. In the early Church, these concepts, these definitions pertaining to punishment, judgment, God's justice upon the damned, were not formal teachings as of yet in the Church. So there were some thinkers like Origen from the 3rd century, who spoke of a teaching where perhaps in the end even all the souls in hell will be saved eventually. But the Church's councils clearly taught that this teaching is not Catholic, it's not Christian, it's not biblical. Origen was wrong, but it was a theory of his, and the reason why he was wrong was, again, because back then these teachings were not yet formally taught by the Church. And when a teaching is not yet formally taught by the Church, it is open to free discussion. But now that the Church has spoken officially, formally, on the matter of the eternity of hell and the sufferings that accompany the sins committed on earth, endured by the damned in hell, no one can say that hell will end one day. No one can say that nobody is in hell. Certainly the Church does not teach that some people are in hell. No, the Church does not teach that. But there is evidence in the Bible and in approved prophetic revelations that in hell there are both damned angels as well as humans. Does this mean that they're locked in hell? No. What underlies the reality of heaven and hell are the spiritual propensities of bilocation. A soul in hell or heaven can bilocate.
So far, we've covered a lot about hell in this compilation, and I hope I'm not covering it too much in this video to the point where it makes you feel depressed somehow. So now, let's listen to this clip of Father Iannuzzi talking about the importance of prayers instead.
The importance of the Church and the need for prayer on behalf of its ministers and members. It is sad that we have examples of individuals in the Church that don't emulate those of the mystics or the saints whose character and example Jesus himself molded as an example for the rest of us. Oftentimes we due, I'm sure, to the fast pace of this world of automation and industry and technology and computers, forget the importance of prayer, and instead of first having recourse to it, have instead recourse to gossip. When we speak of the Church, we are speaking of ourselves. It is impossible to speak of the church without referring to yourself. And this, unfortunately, has fallen out of the lexicon of many critics of the church today, including its own members. It is easy for us to point the finger at other members of the church without first looking at the beam in our own eye. I'm sure that if we looked in the mirror and didn't recognize ourselves, but only our sins, we would say to ourselves, there's more than enough there to be occupied with, rather than looking at another person's defects. Make no mistake about it. We are the first member of the church before God, individually. Each person has the first and foremost august responsibility and mission in the church to perfect and sanctify themselves before perfecting and sanctifying others. We, Jesus tells Catherine of Siena, are our own neighbor, our first neighbor. If we neglect ourselves, we neglect everyone else.
And as for the last clip in this compilation that I would like to share with you is this one, where Father Iannuzzi shares a little bit about those possessed individuals who cannot bring themselves to the sacraments.
From an experience during my exorcisms, when assisting Father Gabriel Amorth in Rome, and then when performing them in America, it is not uncommon that if a soul who is truly possessed is exorcised by a priest, appointed by his bishop, of course, in accordance with canon law, that the soul cannot bring itself to the sacraments. It is not uncommon that during a possession, the soul who is possessed cannot bring itself to the sacraments. Now, we're talking here about a real diabolical possession, not an obsession or a manifestation or an infestation. We're talking about a real body, soul, psychosomatic, diabolical possession here, okay? In this case, the soul cannot go to the sacraments. All right. So the soul is forced to endure this cross of Christ. Suffice it to say that the soul is struggling from this cross of possession, for whatever reason. It cannot bring itself to the sacraments. But the cross has led this person to a priest. Okay? The sacraments cannot do anything right now for this person in a state of possession. The sacraments cannot do a thing, at least personally, because the person's not receiving them. So what is the means that leads the soul to the sacraments? The cross, even in the form of this diabolical affliction.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us, and hopefully all of you have learned so much from this video. And remember, if ever you have any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. Like I said before, I'm going to have another interview with Father Iannuzzi on January 30th, and currently, I'm still putting the questions together and making sure that I don't ask the questions I'd asked before. And we're also going to start a new segment soon, where it's more on Bible studies as well as addressing some of the common verses that our non-Catholic brothers and sisters often misinterpreted, such as call no man father. I think this will be, in a lot of ways, will be helpful to those who are willing to listen. And I'm still thinking about which priest I'm going to do this with, and it won't be with someone like Father Iannuzzi because he's quite busy, but I'll definitely share an update regarding this one very soon. Anyway, if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.
This is part of the victimhood that I'm speaking of, the grace of the baptism of victimhood. By enduring his cross and pleading for the cross to save souls, he goes so far as to say, I earnestly long to extend myself upon you, to open the gates of heaven to all my children and close hell. Now, inasmuch as the gates of hell will be closed only at the general judgment, right? That's when it is closed forever. No one can anymore enter, or right? No one can ever leave, but no one can any further enter, because the number of humans will be complete, and the sentences of eternal damnation and righteousness will be pronounced.